Raizin the Roof, presented by the Central Indiana Realtist Association, a local chapter of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Our mission is to build wealth through home ownership by enhancing economic development. We accomplish this goal by informing, advocating, and educating in the communities we serve. And now, Raizin the Roof.
Welcome and thank you for joining us as we're raising the roof. These programs are designed to show you how to build generational wealth through home ownership. I'm your host today, Dolores Kennedy, and my co-host is
Priscilla Russell with United Real Estate.
And today we have a special guest on. We have the CEO of My Board. We call it My Board. It's actually the Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors. She is here today and she's going to talk to us about an array of subjects and tell us some things that you may or may not know and probably give us some new information that we don't know. But she is Shelly Specchio. Once we come back, we're going to have her tell us a little bit about herself and tell us about My Board. And so that you know what My Board is all about. We'll be right back with Raising the Roof.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Taylor, loan officer with First Merchants Bank, and I would love to help you with your first home purchase. We have a great program that provides a $7,500 grant depending on where you're purchasing and has a minimum credit score requirement of 600. Please call me at 317-566-7611.
Welcome back to Raising the Roof. We have a special guest this morning, Shelly Specchio with Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors. We're so happy to have her to share information with us today. So Shelly, why don't you tell our studio audience about yourself and how you got started and all the things we need to know about Shelly and My Board.
Oh, thank you both. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show today. I've been really looking forward to it, so I appreciate you making space for me. So yes, I'm Shelly Specchio. I'm the CEO of My Board Realtor Association. It started out 100 and some years ago in 1912, and it was the Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors. That's where the My Board term comes from. But sometime before I came here, they changed it officially to just be My Board Realtor Association.
Okay.
I'm glad you guys explained the actual name because in the world, people don't really know what My Board stands for. So thank you for that. I've been here just coming on 5 years. I come from Reno, Nevada, where I was born and raised and went to college and grew up. And I was lured away to come to run this wonderful organization. And it's been my great privilege to get to be here and get to meet our members and know you, and it's been a real thrill for me. My Board Realtor Association serves Central Indiana. The members of our organization are all the realtors of Central Indiana, about half the realtors in the state of Indiana, and we provide all the trade. We're the trade organization. We provide an efficient marketplace. We make sure that we're focused on professionalism and strengthening the communities in our area, and it's also the broker listing cooperative. So we're the MLS for this area as well.
Thank you, Shelly. Tell us a little bit about with My Board. They have some special things that they take care of as far as requirements for fair housing. Why does My Board think that's an important subject at this time?
We do think that that's an important subject at this time. We understand that home ownership is the primary contributor to building wealth in America. And because realtors play such a pivotal role in furthering fair housing, we can advance wealth equity by increasing housing opportunities for those who have been historically disenfranchised and marginalized. So fair housing, removing opportunities for discrimination, and really helping to strengthen our communities by ensuring equity in home ownership are major focuses for us here at My Board.
Do you find that there are you find racial discrimination a lot through MyBoard in the, as far as your members and or the community of real estate at large?
I wouldn't say we find a lot of discrimination. I think that this last few years have really uncovered, really to take a look at people, at their own biases. I think realtors are focused on fighting discrimination. I think that the realtors really want to make sure that their sellers are getting the best price for their house if they're representing the seller, and their buyer is getting the house of their dreams if they're representing the buyer. I believe that discrimination probably still happens. I mean, I think that's a true thing, but I truly believe that realtors are fighting discrimination as when they're aware of it. Our role is to make sure that we are making the right amount of education, making sure our members are aware of their own biases. I think that there have been historically a lot of opportunities for discrimination in the purchase and sale of real estate, and we are about shining a light on that, eliminating those opportunities for discrimination, and making sure that we are creating this community where professionalism and equity are so important to us.
Shelley, do you find or do you hear a lot about the as far as the real estate sales, that the homeowners are discriminating at all in people that want to buy their homes? Do you hear that much?
I don't hear that a lot. We have a system, of course, for reporting any kinds of discrimination through our professional services department and our code of ethics, which is the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics, which really causes realtors to hold themselves up at a higher level than just anyone with a real estate license. And so, we monitor that. We have an open source to receive information about discrimination, and I have not seen an uptick in those kinds of cases. I think there was a big study, an investigative report that happened in Long Island, and that shook the real estate world. That was in November of 2019, and it's mandatory watching for our leadership and our board of directors. We make sure as we bring in committee members that they understand that, because I think the crux of it is that discrimination does still exist, and I think that we just need to really shine a light so that people recognize in themselves their own biases. So we're seeing things in our market here where some, for example, brokers are starting to disallow the presentation of love letters. I think that's an important piece, and there's getting a lot of traction with that across the country. Some states are making them illegal. I understand why a buyer would want to express how much they love this house and why they'd be the best buyer for a house. But again, it just creates an opportunity for discrimination for someone who doesn't even understand their own bias. They don't feel like they're discriminating people, but they just naturally are giving into their own bias and maybe choosing the family who doesn't have dogs because they've kept their house so beautiful. So it just doesn't need to be a part of the transaction. I think that buying and selling real estate is at the end of the day a business transaction, and doesn't need to have all that emotion in it. So we're very proud of several brokers in our market here who have, of their own volition, made an addendum that says we will not be presenting them. They work with their sellers to make them understand why it's a dangerous, slippery slope, perhaps, to even consider photos and love letters from the buyer. So I think we want to be a really strong community. We want to be a strong profession that is fighting against discrimination. But humans are humans, and we all have our biases. The key is to learn what your bias is and work against it. And so that's the education we're trying to do.
Shelley, the love letters, I don't think that that was the reason for them in the beginning. I think actually they were I want them to consider me for this home, and I'm going to tell them all about my grandmother, my mother, my kids, all of that. And I think it turned into that. Am I getting that correct?
I think it was a tactic. Yes, I think it started out as a tactic of, especially in a market that's so crazy like it's been now. I mean, love letters have been going on for years and years and years, especially in Indianapolis. They were less popular out west where I'm from. I hadn't really heard of them so much until I came to Indiana. But I understand in the Midwest and further east that it's a very popular tactic in a tight market. So when you're getting 5, 10, 15 offers on one property, you want to set your buyer apart. You want to encourage your buyer to tell the story to the seller of why they should choose your offer. I can see why a buyer would want to provide that information. The trick, though, is that just by the fact of being human, you are now choosing one offer over another based on the characteristics that speak to you of that person. So regardless of the race of the person or the familial status of that person, it just presents an opportunity for there to be discrimination. It doesn't mean that every person who ever presented a love letter had discrimination in that situation. I'm not trying to say that. I just think we want to remove the opportunities for discrimination that aren't necessary to the transaction. Right. That makes sense.
Well, one of the questions that I had was regarding the appraisal discrimination, some of the things that are going on. How has my board been able to address some of those issues?
That's a difficult situation. It's our job is to have the most accurate data available to our practitioners, to all of our members, to our realtor members and our appraiser members. There was, of course, a big, a very well-known case that happened in Indianapolis, and it was difficult. There were appraisers that were very, very low, and then the final appraisal came up very high. And so we just want to make sure that our members are using the actual data that we have, walking through the house, really paying attention to the actual area that they are, using good comps, drawing the right maps, really understanding the areas that are up for appraisal. The appraisal world is changing, and it's difficult because so many are working to remove the human element entirely. And so we're studying that. We're asking, are these valuation models that exist, they remove the human element? Are they better? Are they accurate? Yeah. It's very difficult. I think you can't do better than a really good, totally unbiased, without any prejudice, human element is the best situation. But again,
Shelley, what we're going to have to do is take a break for a moment, and we're going to need to have you to come back and continue the conversation on that information. So we'll be right back, and we'll have Shelley to continue to tell us about the appraisal process and what needs to happen right now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Boudwin, a loan officer with First Merchants Bank. If you're thinking about buying your first home, give me a call. We have a no money down program and no private mortgage insurance. My number is 317-566-6123.
Hello, I'm Dolores Kennedy, broker owner of B&K Real Estate Services, where helping you buy or sell your home is what I do. Call me. You see the number. Call me.
I'm Karen Kelly, a broker with Fathom Realty with over 14 years of experience. As a realtor and a realtist, I advocate for my clients and value the trust that they put in me. What's important to you is important to me. Call me. I'm here to help.
Welcome back to Raising the Roof. Today we have Shelley Specchio, CEO of MyBOR, Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors. And we're going to continue with some questions. She's giving us so much information today. And one of the questions that I had was about how DEI really is affected, and what that really means in order for our audience to understand what it's talking about and how MIBOR is supporting the DEI efforts.
Thank you. So my board is working hard on some DEI efforts. DEI, we use that term for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're especially interested in the inclusion part as a trade organization. We want to make sure that we are representative of our area. We want to make sure that we have our membership is representative. So we've built a statement of our commitment. We have a new webpage that's up. I hope you guys will take a look at it on myboard.com. Diversity and equity and inclusion is interwoven throughout our strategic plan and even in our economic development efforts. For example, you might have seen a story just recently in the Indy Star about neighborhoods and investors coming in and relocating homeowners. We are, through our economic development efforts, funding to support some studies for the city for certified community plans to help keep people in their communities and really try to educate people on understanding the value of their homes, things like that. We're also involved in several community organizations. So supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion in our own organization, as well as out in the community, is the ongoing work of MIBOR for sure.
How can MIBOR's support of DEI affect benefit consumers?
Well, gosh, according to the National Fair Housing Association, closing the racial gap would add, like, I think the number was $5 trillion in GDP to the US economy over a 5-year period. So that would be expanding fair access to credit. That would have added homeownership opportunities for almost, I think the numbers were like 800,000 Black households. That would add billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to sales in the housing market, which would be good for everyone. Providing equal lending opportunities to Black entrepreneurs. If they did that over a 5-year period, that from where we are now, that would add $13 trillion in business revenue and like 6 million jobs. Closing racial gaps is good business, besides being the right thing to do for people, of course. So we know that home ownership is the primary contributor to wealth in America, as I said, and we just believe that it's our responsibility as part of the housing industry to take action towards tangible and lasting change for our organization, as well as for our community in Central Indiana.
You know, we talked earlier about the homeownership gap, and we do know that the homeownership gap is, for Blacks, it's 44.6%. I think this is the second or third quarter of 2021, and it's like 44.6 versus 72.4 for white non-Hispanics. And so do you think the DEI or the diversity, equity, and inclusion facet of this will help that?
Well, that's the goal. So
Okay.
I hope so. I think that is the work to be done. I think that by closing this gap, it brings the whole economy up. It brings up the whole community, the whole economy. So that's the work to be done. We have a data scientist on staff here at MIBOR and a government relations and community relations department. And those pieces of the work, that's the focus, is trying to close that gap and really understanding the gap locally and what's contributing to it, and then go into those places and really try to affect real change in those areas. So it's across the board. We've created a new committee that's going to break into work groups that will go out into the community in various ways. So we've got the economic development, we've got the fighting discrimination, and we're going to go into schools and make sure that, one, that children see this as a real career, and hope to bring more people of color of all different walks of life into, so we have a very diverse membership, so we can just serve a diverse community. And then also we want to make sure that people who have historically grown up without the opportunity to have been in a family that owned their home to really understand the values and the way you build wealth through home ownership. So there's a lot of different facets to the work we want to do in the community on this topic. We're going to need some help, and I think you both have been put on a committee. So,
Yeah. So, well, we one of the things at our meetings last week, Shelley, we talked about professional standards and some of the requirements and all the things that my board is trying to do. One of the things that I just want to compliment my board on the fact that they're opening up all of this information to so many people, and people are volunteering. So how are you guys getting those volunteers set up and on the road to working so that this diversity issue can be addressed in a positive manner?
yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, and we're going to need a lot of people to help us do it. So we have just went through the committee application process. We had more applications than we've ever had before, many more than actual seats that we have to fill. So we, next Wednesday, the board will approve those appointments, and then we'll send out letters to invite people in. And then everybody who raised their hand, who told us they were interested in serving, we're going to be able to reach back out to them for other roles and work groups and task force and just showing up to help this work. So we've got a lot of work to do, but many hands makes light work. And so we have a lot of volunteers. It's going to be good.
Well, you know what? I am glad that you got more applications than you have positions. That lets you know and lets us know that there is a need, and that something needs to be done. We need to try to make a change in what's going on. So that's a good thing. I'm excited about that.
We are too.
One of the other things, what are some of the how can people find out more about my board and their purpose in the real estate industry?
Oh, well, we have a really great website. I'm super proud of it. It's called myboard.com, just MIBOR.com. There's tons of information on there. You can explore and explore, but the most important thing I would want to leave people understanding is that our mission is to empower our members and strengthen the marketplace. And everything we do comes back to that mission and making sure that we're really a strong housing community and a strong community overall for our citizens. It's important to us.
So if someone feels like they have been discriminated against in any way, would my board be one of the first spots that they might come to, in addition to maybe fair housing? I mean, would you guys have anyone in your organization that could lead someone in the right direction?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We absolutely do. Especially if someone felt that they were discriminated in a transaction or by a realtor who is a member of ours, we hope they will call us first. We have a whole system for professionalism. It's one of our key strategic objectives, is that we promote professionalism all the way through. Also, I would recommend people just really starting with HUD and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, learning about the Fair Housing Act and who is protected, what kinds of housing are covered within that. We also have the Fair Housing Center of Central Indiana, who are fabulous and do an excellent job. If anyone ever feels discriminated, that's another excellent place to go. And then there's the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, which I would recommend. So whatever place feels comfortable, I hope what the most important thing that I'd want to get across is that anyone who ever feels that discrimination, not to just stay silent. We have to know we will only address these things if it's shine a light on it and we are able to have open conversations and really stop it. And as I said before, realtors are actively fighting discrimination. And if one isn't, we want to know about it and we want to hold people accountable. So I definitely recommend coming to myboard.com or Myboard Realtor Association just call us, whatever you need to do, but don't stay silent.
Well, one of the other things that I'm glad that you talked about today, Shelley, is the fact that you are starting at the beginning when you're talking about going into schools and having classes and teaching us and teaching our students about home ownership and where they can go. So that's a wonderful place to start when they're young, and we can get that information to them. So we appreciate MyBoard at least thinking ahead. So we're going to be wrapping this show up for today, but we just want to thank you for all this information. You know, I sort of forgotten about some of the things when you're talking about civil rights and all that. We got to remember all of those things all the time. So we just really want to thank you for taking the time out today and sharing information with Raizin the Roof.
Thank you so much, Shelley.
Thank you. What an honor. Thank you.
On behalf of CIRA, Central Indiana Realtist Association, we invite real estate professionals to join us at our monthly meeting, first Wednesday of each month at MCL Castleton, 11:30 a.m., where our mission is advocating, informing, and educating. Our vision is building wealth through home ownership. See you there.
And welcome back to Raising the Roof. We had an exciting show today with Shelley Specchio from the CEO of MyBoard Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors. She talked to us about their programs that they're having, the diversity, equity, and inclusion program that they're having, and all of the things that MyBoard is doing so that they can help to close that racial gap in home ownership. What do you think, Ms. Priscilla?
Well, I think it was wonderful. This year they opened the volunteer situations up to so many people. The Board of Realtors did. We've got realtors all over the city that are now engaged in taking a look at diversity and inclusion, and it's one of the goals for MyBoard. So that makes it something that we can all talk about without just talking about it just for race. It's everything that we need to take care of, and I'm so excited that they're going to be starting in schools and doing some of the things that getting people advised of real estate and what a great way it is to really obtain home ownership and go forward. So we're having a good day. I think she did a great job.
I think she did a great job, and I thank you for joining us today. We hope that the information was good information. We thank you for considering the National Association of Real Estate Brokers and the Central Indiana Realtors Association. We thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon. Have a good day.
Raizin the Roof